In thinking about my students' needs as a reader, I researched effective decoding strategies for struggling readers. Strong decoding skills are essential for the development of fluency and comprehension. My student struggles to decode multisyllabic words, find and use effective strategies, as well as fluency and comprehension skills. Currently in my classroom, he receives third grade phonics instruction, as well as meeting in a guided reading group 3 times per week. In his guided reading group, he works on the 3-question cueing system. Does that look right? Does that sound right? And does that make sense as he's reading? During my research, I found 3 practices that could be implemented in my classroom. Word boxes for letter-sound correspondence, the Toto strategy for vowel pair words, and syllable type instruction. Word boxes are used for students to recognize the relationship between letters and their corresponding sound. This could be used in small group instruction with a differentiated list of words, depending on your student's needs. I would use magnet letters or tiles to make this activity more engaging and hands-on for students. In essence, they would make and break apart words to manipulate letters and their sounds. For my student in particular, I would create words with blended sounds, digraphs, and vowel pairs. As seen in the picture, the word sheep, sh, makes the SH sound and goes in one box. And the E, making only that E, long E sound, is represented by 2 E's, which goes in that center box, and the P sound at the end. So for my student, I would want to create words that had blended sounds, digraphs, and vowel pairs, and also to have him apply this to his independent reading and have the ability to self-assess his work. So to do this, he could jot down on a post-it during his independent reading words that he encounters with blended sounds, digraphs, and vowel pairs that he was able to sound out using this strategy. To assess the effectiveness of this strategy, I would use a pre- and post-assessment called a phonics inventory from our reading assessment binders. This pre- and post-assessment would indicate the words that the student was able to read before the strategy and the words that the student was able to read after the strategy. Also, in guided reading groups, I would not only be able to observe the student's ability to read these words, but also conduct a running record. I would be able to clearly see the words that the student is reading correctly and able to decode, and the words that he's miscuing. It also is a nice time to talk to the student about the strategies that they're using and to clear up any misconceptions and really reinforce the strategy that you want the student to be using. Also, using word boxes, I would be able to see the student's ability to segment letters and sounds and rebuild them and put them together as a word. Again, I want the student to be able to self-assess during their independent reading how well they're using the strategy and if the strategy is useful to them. The next strategy is the Toto strategy, and this works for decoding vowel pairs. Yes, there is the connection to the Wizard of Oz. Toto stands for try one, try the other. So when a student comes to a word that has a vowel pair, they can use this strategy to effectively decode the word using long or short vowels. I would like to create a bookmark for my student because he's a very visual learner and needs reminders to use his strategies. So with a bookmark that said Toto, try one, try the other, I feel that this strategy would be an effective one when he comes to words that have vowel pairs. So if he was reading a word like the word field, the player was on the field, and he could not decode the word, he would try one vowel and then try the other. So the first vowel in the word field is I. I'm going to try the word field with a long I. He's going to realize that that doesn't work. So now I'm going to try the word field with a short I. That also isn't going to work. So now I have to try the other vowel, E. I'm going to try E with a long E sound. That would give me the word field. The player is on the field. And he'd have to use that cueing system of does that make sense? Yes. So he would know he was able to successfully decode the word field. This could be used for single and multisyllabic words depending on the need of your student. I would also like him to be applying this strategy to his reading independently and orally to ensure that he is using the strategy and his bookmark, and to think about, is this a strategy that works for me? This is a strategy that could be used during that pre and post assessment as well in that phonics survey to see what words the student knew, and as a result of Toto, what words he's able to decode now. Also during guided reading groups would be a great opportunity for me to hear him reading and to hear how he's grappling with these words, how he's breaking them down to decode them and trying vowel sounds that he wasn't doing before. Again, self-assessing during independent reading, writing down words that he came across with vowel pairs, and discussing with me during independent conference time how he was able to decode those words using the Toto strategy. I find it very important to work with students, not only giving a strategy, but how it's working for them, how they're using it, and if it's not working, to make those adjustments. The third strategy is teaching students about the 6-syllable types. The purpose is that so students can read multisyllabic words by breaking them and chunking them into syllable types. So there are steps to teaching students about syllable types, and what I really liked about it was that it's kind of a slow and steady approach. You're not going to throw all 6-syllable types at the student at once, but rather teach them one or two and allow them to practice and really manipulate words and try and practice and kind of play with the words before you introduce the others. So your first step would be to manipulate with letter chips and magnets and really support the student in whatever syllable type it is. So really building words, creating words, practicing with that syllable type. And then step 2 would be reading numerous single syllable words with that specific type. So if we're talking about closed syllable words, you're going to stick with 1-syllable closed words like cat, and really practicing with many, many words that 1-syllable type. And then step 3 would be to now incorporate 2- and 3-syllable words with just that syllable type. So really giving the student a clear and firm grasp on 1-syllable type with 1-syllable words 2 and 3 before moving on. And then step 4, once the student has 2- or 3-syllable types under their belt, you can kind of play games with them and manipulate words with 2, 3, and 4 syllables, and do sorts and lists so that the student has to identify what types of syllables the words have and put them into lists depending on that syllable type, organizing the words so that they fit under a specific category: closed, opened, R-controlled, vowel team, vowel silent E, or consonant LE. So really bringing the student's attention to the type of syllable that that word contains and organizing it with like words. I would think that my student, being a visual learner, would need a bookmark or a poster like the picture that is depicted here visible to him at all times. This is a concept that I think will be tricky for him, but with reinforcement and practice and a slow approach, 1-syllable type at a time, I know it's something that would be very beneficial to him. I also really like the idea of using manipulative, using games, using word lists to really make this an interactive and fun experience for students and not one that seems treacherous. Again, as I said for the last 2, I want him to be able to connect this to his text and self-assess. I'm coming across words in my reading that I don't know. I'm writing them down. How did you break them up? How did you know what word it was? How did you decode? And really getting him to think and show ownership of, I used the syllable strategy and I know it's an R-controlled word, and that's what helped me to decode the word. To assess if this strategy would be an effective strategy, again using the pre and post assessment from our phonics inventory, what words didn't he know and what words does he know now, guided reading group observations as well as running records to really narrow down the words that he is reading and decoding accurately and still where he's miscuing. word sorts and identification of syllable types, so playing those games with him to see, is he able to identify the types of syllables and put words into categories based on their syllable types. And last, self-assessing. Can he, now into his independent books, apply this strategy and know himself as a reader to say, I can use syllable types. I really feel comfortable with closed syllables and open syllables, but I think I need a little more practice with R controlled. Getting him to have that accountability for himself as a reader and the skills that he has a grasp on strongly and the skills that he still needs to practice. To conclude, I've learned a lot about decoding and the importance that it holds in students being able to read fluently and to comprehend. So decoding is that essential foundation for reading skills. Students need to know how to be able to decode and have that toolbox ready when they come to a word that they don't know, because it will increase their fluency and their comprehension. Decoding is something, even at the third grade level, that needs to be explicitly modeled, taught, and practiced. Using manipulatives to make it fun and engaging for students makes them want to practice it and use it more. Students need to have access to strategies to determine the effectiveness of the strategy for themselves. Is this a strategy that works for me in my reading? Using data and assessments differentiate to meet the needs of your readers. Not all readers need the same tools and the same strategies or the same reinforcement. So really getting to know your students as readers to pinpoint where their need is. Provide tools and strategies for readers. They need reminders, they need bookmarks and post-its and visuals to remind them, oh, that's my strategy to use when I come to a word I don't know. That's right, now I remember, let me try it. And the biggest and most important is to let students take ownership of their reading and of their success. They need to know what works best for them and who they are as readers. Let them take that ownership and that accountability to know what works best for them.